The invitation was embossed in gold, heavy in my hand, as if it knew the storm that was coming. I turned it over, again and again, tracing the delicate patterns shimmering under the office light. My name sat there, bold and unyielding, as though it belonged to someone who had never been cast aside. And yet, it felt like a trap, an elaborate performance waiting for its perfect moment. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I could hear Brianna's voice, sharp as a blade. "You'll always be second best, Sienna." This wasn't just an invitation. It was a summons back to the Carter chessboard, where every move was calculated and the pawns were there to be sacrificed. My father's 60th birthday celebration, held at the Palm Springs Resort. An opulent ballroom under crystal chandeliers, tuxedoed servers gliding across the floor like shadows, a string quartet weaving soft music beneath whispered conversations. It was all too perfect. Polished smiles, careful words, and knives hidden in the folds of their gowns. I stepped into the ballroom, heart racing, my heels clicking against the marble floor, each step a reminder of how out of place I was. The scent of orchids and expensive perfume hung in the air, sweet and suffocating. Brianna's eyes found me first. Her smile was cool, triumphant, slicing through the atmosphere between us. Her gaze swept over me like a predator assessing its prey. I forced a polite nod, the mask slipping onto my face, a fragile shield barely holding back the storm inside. Richard glanced up from the head table, his stare sharp, cold, a silent reprimand for daring to show up. Elaine's smile was brittle, eyes blinking too quickly, as if begging for peace no one believed in. Caleb, seated off to the side, caught my eye for the briefest moment. A flicker of something. Guilt? Resignation? Whatever it was, it vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the hollow exhaustion etched on his face. Brianna approached, her gown hugging her like a tailored suit of armor, her posture flawless, her tone dripping with honey and venom. "Well, you made it. Let's hope you don't. 'Cause a scene tonight. Caleb's had a long week, after all." Her voice floated like silk, but every word was a carefully placed thorn. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the retort that burned on my tongue. The evening unfolded like a well-rehearsed play. Conversations that danced around old wounds, jabs hidden in compliments. Brianna's voice always a fraction too loud, drawing attention to her triumphs. The deals she'd closed, the accolades she'd earned, the admiration she collected like trophies. Elaine laughed politely, her eyes never fully meeting mine. Richard's gaze lingered on me like a specter, watching, waiting. I sipped my wine, bitter against my tongue, and caught Caleb glancing at me, eyes darting away, shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. Then I saw it. Brianna's hand hovering over my glass, a subtle movement as she shifted, her fingers brushing the rim in a way that sent a chill down my spine. A whisper of suspicion gripped me, cold and sharp. My pulse spiked. My skin prickled with the certainty that something wasn't right. I didn't think. My body moved before my mind could catch up, and I swapped my glass with Caleb's, heart thudding in my chest like a drumbeat in the dark. Caleb, unaware, lifted the glass to his lips and took a sip. Brianna's eyes locked on mine. Her lips curled into a slow, satisfied smile. Sienna held her breath. The moment Caleb took a sip, I knew the night had shifted. And I wasn't ready for what came next. Time seemed to stutter, catching in my throat like the sharp edge of a breath I couldn't quite take. The music swelled around us, a beautiful twisting waltz that felt absurdly out of place. Laughter bubbled in the air, a shimmering veil that barely concealed the undercurrent of something darker. I watched as Caleb set the glass down, his fingers loose, the lines in his forehead deepening ever so slightly. It was just a drink, just a glass of wine. That's what I told myself. But my mind spun back to years ago. High school, the science fair, my carefully rehearsed presentation laid out like a roadmap to my future. And Brianna, standing there with her perfect hair and that innocent smile, knocking over the model I'd built, scattering my diagrams across the floor like fallen leaves. "Oops," she had said. voice laced with sugar and acid, while the judges looked on with thinly veiled disapproval. It wasn't the first time, but it was the first time I realized accidents in the Carter family were rarely accidents. I blinked, snapping back to the present. The ballroom shimmered, the light too bright, too golden, almost blinding. Caleb's laughter was a shade too loud, the words slipping from his mouth with a slight slur. His shoulders, usually so square and proper, sagged as if gravity had doubled its hold on him. Brianna's gaze flitted toward him, a flicker so fast that if I hadn't been watching her like a hawk, I might have missed it. Her smile remained fixed, but there was a tension in her posture now, the faintest tightening of her jaw, the way her hand hovered over the back of his chair a moment too long. She was playing it off, whispering something in his ear, brushing a hand over his shoulder as if steadying him, but her eyes, sharp and bright, kept darting back to me. I tried to melt into the crowd to make myself invisible. My palms were slick, my throat dry as sand. Was I imagining it? Was this all in my head? Had I just poisoned my brother-in-law? My stomach twisted, and a wave of nausea crawled up my throat. A hand brushed my elbow. I flinched. Noah was standing beside me, his brow furrowed. His voice was low, careful, as if trying not to draw attention. "Sienna, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a tight smile, but my lips trembled. "I'm fine." The words felt hollow, brittle in my mouth. I couldn't tear my gaze away from Caleb. He staggered slightly, bumping into a table, sending a cascade of wine glasses crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot, silencing the chatter for a beat. Heads turned, whispers blooming like smoke. Caleb muttered something, a garbled apology, wiping at his forehead with the back of his hand. Brianna moved quickly, her heels clicking with purpose. She reached for him, steadying him with a touch that was all too practiced, all too intimate. "You're fine, love," she cooed, but there was a crack in her voice. Small, but there. Her eyes, though, were laser-focused on me, narrowed, calculating. Caleb sank into a nearby chair, his hands gripping the edges as if the floor might tilt beneath him at any moment. His breathing was shallow, and he pressed his fingers to his temples, muttering about the room spinning. My breath caught in my throat, and then Brianna's eyes locked onto mine. Sharp, accusing, as if she knew. It only took a single crack in Brianna's mask for everything she built to come crashing down. The aftermath of Caleb's stumble rippled through the room like a slow-motion train wreck. Whispers swirled, clusters of guests huddling together, eyes darting between the head table and the woman who had, for so long, been the family's golden child. The air in the ballroom thickened, heavy with the scent of roses, sweat, and something sour that had nothing to do with spilled wine. I stood rooted to the spot, heart hammering so loud I was certain it echoed off the chandelier crystals. My palms trembled at my sides, but my voice, when I finally spoke, was steady, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Tell them what you did, Brianna." Every head turned. A hush fell, save for the distant clinking of glasses being hurriedly gathered by the staff. Brianna's eyes flashed to mine, wide, a flicker of something. Panic? Before the practiced smirk slipped into place. "Oh, Sienna." Her laugh was light, brittle. "You're always so dramatic." Her voice, laced with condescension, tried to mold the room back into her favor, as if charm alone could smooth over the growing unease. But this time, it didn't work. I felt the shift, the ripple of doubt creeping across faces that had once been so quick to nod along. I took a step forward, the heel of my shoe clicking sharply against the floor, a punctuation mark in the silence. My hand tightened around the small glass vial I'd found tucked near her purse. Cool, smooth, damning. I held it up, letting the light catch the tiny glint of liquid inside. The color drained from Brianna's face so fast it was almost comical. Her breath hitched, her lips parting slightly, as if 1,000 lies had piled up behind her teeth and she couldn't decide which to spit out first. Caleb stirred in his chair, a faint groan escaping him as he rubbed his forehead. eyes still glazed with confusion. "I heard you," he mumbled, voice thick, the words sticking together. Muttering, something about teaching Sienna a lesson. His gaze, unfocused, drifted between us, trying to piece together a puzzle he hadn't even realized existed. The room tensed, the air practically crackling. Richard's voice sliced through it, sharp, commanding. "Enough, what is going on here?" His eyes, dark and unreadable, landed on Brianna. For the first time in a long time, there was a sliver of uncertainty in his expression, a crack in the unshakable authority he wielded like a weapon. Brianna's mask fractured. Her voice rose, shrill and uneven, splintering under the weight of the moment. "She's always trying to steal what's mine. My life, my family, everything, she—" Her words spiraled, too fast, too desperate, and the room recoiled as if her outburst had physically pushed them back. Elaine's hand fluttered to her chest, eyes wide, mouth parted in shock. Guests shifted, a rustling of fabric and whispered disbelief, as the golden daughter they thought they knew cracked open before them. My gaze flickered to Noah. He met my eyes, steady, calm, and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was the kind of nod that said, "I see you. I'm here." And in that breath, the world seemed to pause, balancing on the edge of a knife. The air in the room had shifted, electric, dangerous, and I realized this was the moment I had been waiting for my entire life. The private lounge off the ballroom was dim, the glass walls reflecting distorted shapes of the guests outside, their whispers a faint, ghostly hum beneath the tense silence that now filled this space. The ticking of a nearby clock marked each second like a countdown to the inevitable. I stood at the center, my phone in my hand, thumb hovering just above the screen, feeling the weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressing down on my chest. My pulse thrummed in my ears, a steady, insistent drumbeat. Across from me, Brianna sat rigid, her breath shallow, eyes flickering between me, Caleb, and our parents. Each second that passed carving deeper lines into her carefully constructed facade. Noah leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed, his gaze sharp but unreadable, a quiet, watchful presence that anchored me in the storm. Richard was the first to break the silence, his voice low but edged with authority. "Sienna, if you have something to say, now's the time." I swallowed hard, a knot tightening in my throat. Then, without another word, I pressed play. Brianna's voice filled the room, smooth and venomous, unmistakable in its clarity. "I'm telling you, Caleb, sometimes she needs to learn the hard way. A little something in her drink. Just enough to remind her who's in charge." The words seemed to echo, bouncing off the glass walls, magnified by the stillness that followed. Caleb stiffened, his body recoiling as if the very sound of her voice had burned him. His eyes snapped to Brianna, confusion and betrayal warring in his gaze. You said it was nothing," he muttered, voice cracking. His hands clenched into fists on his lap. Brianna's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, her lips moving without sound. Finally, she found her voice, high and strained, tinged with panic. "It was a joke. God, Caleb, you know how I talk. I didn't mean—" "Enough." Richard's voice was sharper this time, slicing through her defense like a blade. He turned his gaze to Brianna, a mixture of disbelief and fury brewing behind his eyes, as if the foundation he had so carefully built under her feet was cracking, splintering apart. Elaine, pale and trembling, reached for Richard's arm, tears brimming in her eyes. Her lips quivered, words caught somewhere between a plea and a question she didn't dare voice. I took a slow step forward, my hands steady even though my heart raced like a wild thing in my chest. I let my eyes lock onto Brianna's, holding her there, refusing to let her look away. "You've manipulated us for years, Brianna," I said, my voice low, firm, a quiet fury laced through every syllable. "Not anymore." Her breath hitched. The room seemed to contract, as if every molecule of air had been sucked out. Then Brianna lunged, Her hands shot forward, reaching for my phone in a frantic, clawing motion, her nails catching the light as they swiped through the air. For a split second, the world tilted, the adrenaline surging so hard I could taste it. But Noah was faster. He stepped between us, calm but unyielding, his voice low and steady. "It's over, Brianna." The words dropped like a stone in a still pond, the ripples of finality spreading outward, shattering whatever illusion she thought she still held. In the silence that followed, it felt like the entire family was holding its breath, waiting to see who we would become without Brianna's lies. Morning light streamed through the tall windows of the Carter estate, cutting sharp lines across the polished floors and gilded frames. The house felt hollow, like an echo of itself, every corner heavy with the weight of what had been exposed the night before. I moved slowly through the halls, my fingers trailing over the cool surfaces of furniture I'd grown up around, the edges of tables where childhood laughter had once rung out, now dulled by the memory of whispered betrayals. Each room held a shadow of her. Brianna's voice, her laughter, her careful manipulation woven into the fabric of this place like an invisible thread. Downstairs, I heard the low murmur of voices, strained and tired. I reached the landing just as Caleb zipped his suitcase shut, the sound sharp in the stillness. He looked up briefly, dark circles under his eyes, his face set in a quiet, exhausted determination. Brianna stood near the door, her hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed and wild. Her voice cracked as she pleaded, hands gesturing frantically. "Caleb, please. This is all a misunderstanding. You know I didn't mean it that way. I was just... God, don't do this." He didn't respond, just shook his head slightly, a weary motion that seemed to take every ounce of his energy. Then, softly, almost like a thought escaping his lips, he said, "Sometimes I wonder what life would be like without all the pretending." His voice was flat, resigned, but it landed like a punch. Brianna's breath hitched, and for a moment she froze. Then something snapped. Her voice rose, sharp and jagged, shattering the fragile quiet. "You're a coward. You're throwing away everything we built." Richard's voice cut through her tirade, stern and commanding. "Enough. This family will not tolerate betrayal." His eyes were steel, his hands folded tightly in front of him. Elaine, standing a few steps behind, sobbed softly, her hands twisting a handkerchief into knots. Brianna turned to him, eyes wide with disbelief, but there was no reprieve in his expression, only a cold finality. The sound of the front door opening echoed like a gunshot when Caleb left, suitcase in hand, not looking back. I exhaled, the weight in my chest pressing harder as I watched him disappear. The house seemed to sigh with me, as if it too was finally ready to exhale the truth we had all been choking on. Brianna's gaze snapped to me, fury and humiliation blazing in her eyes. She took a step forward, voice shaking with venom. "This isn't the end, Sienna. You'll regret this. I swear it." Her words hung in the air, a bitter promise before she stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Elaine tried to follow, her hands fluttering, her voice breaking in soft sobs. "Please, can't we just..." I gently placed a hand on her arm, steadying her. "No, Mom. It's time to let the truth stand." My voice was quiet but firm, each word a step away from the chaos Brianna had left behind. I drifted into the kitchen, letting the morning light pour over me, filling the space where the darkness had clung so tightly. Noah stood by the counter, his hands in his pockets, watching me. He didn't say anything right away, just let the silence settle around us, a rare, almost comforting presence. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, even. "You did what no one else could." I managed a small, tired smile, my body aching with the weight of everything that had been torn open. For a moment, it felt like we had reached the end of something. But when I returned to my room, the illusion shattered. A plain white envelope lay on the floor, just inside the doorframe, as if it had been slid there quietly, unnoticed. My stomach twisted as I picked it up, fingers trembling. Inside was an old photo, Caleb and me, from a college party long ago, laughing, arms slung over each other like siblings should be. And beneath it, a note written in tight, angular handwriting. It's never over. I had spent years shrinking in her shadow. Now it was time to claim my place in the light. The Carter family boardroom stretched before me, a sleek, modern space with glass walls that framed the city skyline like a painting. The long table gleamed under recessed lighting, every chair perfectly placed, every surface pristine. Except now, it felt different. The air wasn't choked by Brianna's presence anymore. It was open, expectant. I took a steady breath, smoothing my hand over the polished wood as I stepped to the head of the table. The weight of the moment settled over me, but it didn't crush me. It steadied me. Richard sat a few seats down, his expression unreadable, but his eyes fixed on me with a rare intensity. Elaine sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, hopeful, yet hesitant. The family lawyers and board members lined the room like silent sentinels, their attention shifting between me and the documents in front of them. I cleared my throat, my voice steady as I began. Today marks a new chapter for the Carter family. We've spent too long hiding behind facades, letting ambition rot into resentment. That ends now. My gaze swept the room, daring anyone to look away. Our future will be built on transparency, ethical leadership, and a commitment to breaking the toxic patterns that have held us back. This company is not just a legacy. It's a responsibility. The words hung in the air, and for a moment there was only the soft hum of the city below, the faint creak of chairs shifting, the quiet weight of change settling over everyone. Richard leaned back, his voice gruff but clear. This family needs new leadership, someone with integrity. His eyes, dark and sharp, held mine for a beat longer than necessary, and in that look I saw the unspoken acknowledgement. A torch passed, without fanfare but undeniable. Elaine rose after the meeting, moving toward me with tentative steps. Her voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Sienna, can we try again? I want to understand you better. I inhaled slowly, the air crisp against my lungs, and nodded once. We'll take it one step at a time, but this time it's on my terms. Her shoulders sagged with relief, her eyes shimmering with something almost like hope. The others filtered out, leaving only Noah lingering in the quiet that followed. He stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the city lights with a faint, knowing smile. I approached him, the silence stretching between us like a bridge. He glanced at me, a hint of curiosity sparking in his gaze. So, what's next for you, Sienna? I looked past him, past the glass walls and the city spread out before me, and let the question settle in my bones. For once, the future wasn't a cage. It was a horizon. I stepped to the head of the table, my hands resting firmly on the smooth surface, and let the moment fill me. My voice rang out, strong, steady, unshaken. This is just the beginning. A faint buzz interrupted the stillness, a text notification lighting up my phone on the table. I picked it up, my stomach tightening as I read the message. Brianna's name glared at me from the screen, her words sharp, a warning etched into the glow. You think this is over? Watch your back. I stared at the message for a long, silent moment, the weight of her threat coiling like smoke in the back of my mind. But I didn't flinch. I set the phone down, the city lights reflecting in its glass, and let it sit there, unanswered. The fight wasn't over, but for now the boardroom was mine. In the quiet after the storm, the Carter family stood at a crossroads, no longer shackled by Brianna's illusions. What once seemed unshakable had fractured, and the truth, however late, had found its place in the light. Like the final echo of a courtroom verdict, justice may come slowly, but it leaves a lasting mark. Sometimes it only takes one person's courage to expose a lifetime of deceit. And no matter how deep the lies run, the tide of truth is relentless. It will always find its way through.